take from the forest the things we need, a basket and fruit, and the sweet juice of the coconut bud. Ruth scrapes the pulp of the pandanus free from the many fibers. Not all the fruit is cooked. Some we chew for its sweetness. The other we mix with our taro and our breadfruit to give them flavor. The panini of Nat Benjamin is preparing breadfruit for the storage pit. The panini is a real cooperative family. The father and the sons and their families, or the brothers and their families, or the uncles and nephews and their families. The men, women, and children all work together for the common good of the panini. Sometimes 3 or 4 generations, 30 or 40 people. A man is known by the panini to which he belongs. If it is large and rich, we look up to him. He must be heard. If his panini is poor, he dare not speak in public meeting. Nat Benjamin is respected. His panini has 11 acres of land and many breadfruit for the storage pit. Soaking the breadfruit in the salt water. Heating it to soften the flesh. In 2 days, it will form a mash ready for the pit. The briny pulp of the breadfruit goes into the pit, but this is only the beginning. The new breadfruit will soon spoil if the dry leaves that line the pit are not replaced within a week. During the first month, the leaves must be changed several times until we know that the breadfruit is safe. After that, it will keep for months and years. The pit breadfruit is covered with a mat made of the dry leaves of the pandanus tree. The women of the panini make these mats for the use of the panini. Ruth is 16, and she knows all the arts that belong to a woman of Mwoakilloa. In half a day, she could make a mat that will last for many months. She holds the middle strand with her toe, and her fingers are adept. In the panini, we exchange our labor freely and share in everything we have. We do it for love or duty, for we are kin. And if we like a man, even if he is not kin, we say, he belongs to my panini. Sometimes we exchange our labor between paninis. Lumbering and sawing is heavy work, too much for the men of a single panini. It is better to have the help of many men that the work may be done quickly. We form companies to do heavy work, but this isn't like the work we do for our own panini. This is by contract. Each man in a company must give a day's work to every other man in his turn, or send a friend or a relative or pay a fine of 50 cents. 50 cents, the value of a man's labor for a day. Some of us think this isn't the old way. A man likes to help his friends. Why must we make rules? Why must we measure out the labor? Today we work for Joram, and Joram sets the pace. There are many boards to cut. We use Japanese saws. They keep the line straight. It used to be that the men stood around more and talked. But now each man must finish 7 boards in a day, and we compete. It is Joram's day, and his panini must feed the company. He calls on all his kin to help, to give all they can. The breadfruit, long preserved, comes out of the pit. Akar has gone to her food reserve to help Joram, for they are related, and his panini has many men to feed. She must wash it clean of brine before it can be eaten. Matches by trade, but we still know how to make fire with the fire plow. A few years ago, when the trading people were fighting a war and did not visit us, we again plowed our fires from the heart of the wood. The women of Joram's Penini are building their earth ovens. These ovens must be carefully prepared if they are to burn, and the gravel made hot for cooking. The women will spend a long time here, gathering food, preparing food. Joram's land is small, and he is always afraid that there might not be enough food, enough to feed his friends, to be generous, to command respect. We cook on the heated gravel and imprison in leaves and baskets the heat of the fire and the flavor of the food. More and more taro for the fire. What will Joram have left? And someday he will be called upon to help his kin who have given today. The fish don't matter. There are always plenty of fish. But what of the breadfruit and taro, the things of the land? Joram will feel his loss, and some men will say he was foolish to give so much. And they will even speak about it in public meeting. And again, we will agree not to make such a show of our food, to compete with one another. But still, every man is afraid of what his neighbor will think. He is afraid that some will secretly speak against him, say that he is not generous, that he keeps his food for himself. Joram must be generous. There must be more food than the men of his company can eat. He will be known by what is left after the feast, by the amount that the workers take home. When we thatch the roof of a canoe house, then all Mwoakilloa works as one community. All the Paninis of Mwoakilloa, men, women, and children. The work that children work at with a will, tearing down and making a heap. The thatch is old. For our canoe houses, we must have the finest thatch. Our canoes must be safe from the weather. Our women make the thatch from the leaves of the pandanus. 25, 50, or even more pieces of thatch are given by each panini. They are given freely, but no one forgets that they have been given, and that someday they will be returned. Because our roofs and the protection of our canoes are the common concern of all Mwoakilloa. If a man's canoe house needs thatching, to his help comes all Mwoakilloa, with the speed and accuracy of many hands and the skill of Mwoakilloa, willingly at work at a task that concerns us all, to protect our canoes with which we sail the seas and venture and get food for our people. The ocean floods and flows through our reef to the edge of our village. It fills our sheltered lagoon and is warm and safe for our children. It is as much a part of our village as the paths and the docks and the trees that give us shade. We measure our wealth by the land, by the food and copra it will produce. But it is hard to make a living by the little land we own. So we turn to the sea, build many canoes, learn to catch the fish found around Mwoakilloa and on the reef and in the lagoon. Teach our children the ways of the wind, its quickness with a leaf, its power to push a canoe. Until a youth can make his own canoe, a safe adventure in the unknown sea, how can we say that he's a man? When Bellup decided to build a canoe, he chose a breadfruit tree in the forest. He calls on us to help him cut down the tree and rough out the hull. And we come and work with him. Belloc takes from the land a tree that has given fruit for years, one of his finest trees. And from its solid wood, he builds a canoe that can be used for many things, for fishing, carrying heavy loads across the lagoon, or even sailing to Pohnpei, 100 miles away. Our canoes and the steel tools with which they are made are prized above everything else. Every man on Mwoakilloa has a set of fine tools taken through trade with the Germans, the Japanese, and now the Americans. A trade that has gone on for 100 years. We care for our tools, cover them with coconut oil, and we keep them sharp. In the old days, we used shell tools for this work. It took many months, and the canoes were rough, not pleasant to the eye. Tools, skill, and our combined labor. With these, we finish in a single day the whole work of roughing out the hull. The hull goes to the sea to wash out the sap. After several weeks of soaking in the lagoon, it is ready to become a canoe. Belloc must do the work alone, day after day, planning, measuring, building up the sides so that they are high for the heavy seas. Here's where a man shows his hand and proves he's a man. The canoe will be known by its builder, Belloc. Its speed and strength will be the speed and strength that Belloc has given it. The work is slow. It will take months to finish. No man can give all his time to building a canoe. He must make a living too. So he works when he can. The most careful work is the shaping of the hull, cutting it to the right curve. This takes a skillful hand and a sure eye. No mistake here. And it is only when the canoe is finished that we will know what it can do, if it will be fast, if it will sail into the wind. The hull is finished. It is ready for the outrigger. We have come to help, and in one day we tie the outrigger in place. We work and talk, and each man chooses the job he likes best. This is the work for us. This is where we can show our skill. All the parts are tied together with coconut fiber, each in its special way. The sail is made of cloth. In the old days, before the trade, we used mats of pandanus, and our canoes were not so swift. Tools and cloth, the precious things of trade. And some of us even have machines, too wonderful to understand. Many things have come to us from other lands. This very design of canoe is new among us. We got it from the Marshall Islands a generation ago. Jamish's father knew the secret, but we have changed it, and now it's a Mwoakilloa canoe. Each morning we must cross the reef to reach the ocean. That's the reef Lokapash. The many parts of our reef and of our